Okay. Uh, it's time to start. So, this is the last day of February 2025, and this month we read together um, this book about a mountain by John DeGata, and I love this book. I just finished it yesterday, uh, and yeah, the ending is quite brutal, and um, I think for a little while I kind of didn't know why he ended the book that way. But then, as I was thinking about it, um, it started to make more sense. I think on like first pass, um, this book can was kind of like mystifying, and to me, I felt like it worked. The book really worked, but I didn't know how it worked. And then as I kind of kept reading and going deeper into maybe some of the things that were driving this book, it started to the inner workings, the nuts and bolts, started to become a little bit more clear to me. And yeah, I think in some ways, I've got all these books that are largely, uh, literary fiction novels, and I've always liked. Well, I think I've grown to like work that has more uh, nonfiction flavor, like autofiction is a contemporary term for it, um, or yeah, something with that kind of flavor, and specifically recently more kind of essayistic works, um, and this is kind of um, this is well, I feel like in America we have to categorize books as fiction or nonfiction, um, and I think this is definitely a long form essay or like an essayistic kind of narrative. Um, but even at the end, the author says, John DeGata says that he condensed, um, uh, let's see, on the notes it says, although the narrative of this essay suggests that it takes place over a single summer, the span between my arrival in Las Vegas and my final departure was, in fact, much longer. I have conflated time in this way for dramatic effect only, but I have tried to indicate each instance of the time below. Also, at times, I have also changed subjects' names or combined a number of subjects into a single composite character. Each example of this is noted. So I think what he's doing is, and I've kind of stolen this term, but he has this like performing. He's performing a sort of truth, or performing this kind of nonfiction um, uh, view. To me, it's definitely not. It's not using sort of the um, fiction, a lot of fictional devices, which is very refreshing. Anyway, that's all besides the point. I think just for you to get a flavor of what the book was about. Um, yeah, my I realized something reading yesterday, that a big one of my kind of big thoughts while reading this book, when I did the last video about it halfway through, was that one of the big themes in this book, or one of the big themes that is being revealed in the form of the book and how it's written, is this idea of a facade or a reality being presented, and then it's presented in a very, I would say, what do you call it? Presented in a very affectless kind of way, and then maybe with some skepticism underlying. But then I think what happens is you get this reality or facade, and then it just gets broken down again and again and again. What I noticed yesterday, I have all these notes about the book, is that here's my note that I wrote yesterday. What I like about this book is that instead of Degata proposing his own ideas, put an asterisk by that, he finds examples, research, or other people that demonstrate the ideas he's having, and then pushes the form of the book into the home of those ideas. It's really brilliant. Okay, so what does that mean? I think he's like performing these ideas. These ideas are form, and one of the like really brilliant examples of that is when they're in Yucca Mountain, on page 158. And let's see if I can find it. So Yucca Mountain is the source of pretty much all of the skepticism, the confusion, the doubt, the kind of performing, knowing, the self-appeasing that kind of this knowledge does. And they're in the heart of Yucca Mountain, right there. He's there with the press group, and they're tunneling through the mountain. And so when he's in the core of this place that has represented all of this kind of false reality and facade and unknowing, and they're tunneling through this cave, he says, we passed more lunchers eating, past stoplights on the blink, past no visitors beyond this point, and then beyond that point, we passed a 3-mile stretch of nothing as the tram sped up and heads flipped back and the lamps on all our helmets swished small circles on the walls. The back of Wally's heads, someone's white and wide-eyed face, the walls where blackness happened, and then time at blackness, post at blackness, cuff-linked aid at watch, and then at friend, and then at blackness. We're going down, yelled the guy from the desert ski resort. We were either going down or very quickly going straight. One aide turned and pointed at some blackness on the wall. Time quickly nodded at him and then pointed up ahead. I looked over, then at him. I still saw only black. So, and then let me cut to a little bit before that, page 157. Wally stopped the tram, said something, water, water. The mountain looks dry. It's not, he said, wet, safe, like trying to dissolve your toilet in something, water, water. Two aides looked at Wally, then each other, raised their hands. Something, one aide said. Absolutely, Wally said. We moved on. Whee! I asked Time if he could hear. He pointed to something, nodding. It was blackness on the wall. We passed the drift scale heater test in alcove number 9, a lab in which Event was heating rocks inside of Yucca to 384 degrees Fahrenheit. Imagine, Wally said, your home heating bill. One aide started laughing. We moved forward. Someone, okay, so that's a demonstration of this all the general, the sense and the flavor that has been talked about, the information that's been presented about Yucca Mountain, which is this like hinge point of this book, and that let me just say this. So his conclusion is that I think that what I believe is that the mountain is where we are. It's what we have now come to, a place that we have studied more thoroughly at this point than any other parcel of land in the world, and yet it still remains unknown, revealing only the fragility of our capacity to know. So when he's in the heart of this place that we've studied more than any parcel of land in the world, and yet we still have no idea how this would ever work, or what this project is even trying to do. When he's in the center of that, it's all sort of, it's blackness. He can't hear. People are like yelling out of joy, "We're going down." And then they were either going down or very quickly going straight. So you don't know where he is in space. You don't know you can't see, you can't hear. There's this idea that like in this concept, in this place of Yucca Mountain, he's none of it makes sense. And informally, right, what he's presenting in the book is this sense of confusion. So that was really, really interesting and impressive to me. And I feel like reading that passage once we were in Yucca Mountain, on like page 158, it really helped me read into how he was writing the book. And that was exciting to me. So I mentioned his conclusion. I think that at the start of the book, one of his main questions, the kind of where the book was headed, the overarching kind of theme that he was looking at. Ophi's been slightly aggressive today, so she's gonna sit right on my notebook and hopefully not bite me. Okay, so he at the very start of the book, I think this is the end of the first section, he wrote that during the summer I lived in Vegas, I began to feel those claims. I began to feel those claims appealing in their hopefulness, the way parades appeal, the way she's biting me. The way a list appeals to those with faith and withheld meanings, the dream that if we linger long enough with anything, the truth of its significance is bound to be revealed. Okay, so that's page 15, and then he starts his quest into Yucca Mountain and Las Vegas, and to facade, to signs, and into kind of the like dark heart of this theme, which also involve the boy and the stratosphere, which is tragic. And so then he has got kind of two separate conclusions. And I remember I put an asterisk by when I noted that he rarely proposes his own ideas, and he finds rather like examples, research, or other people that can demonstrate these inklings that he's having, these senses that he has. But it's the two parts where he very clearly proposes his own kind of judgments on what's happening are page 167, when he says, "I think that what I believe is that even the way he proposes that, I think that what I believe," right? Instead of this like when he's interviewing those scientists, and they have this very strong kind of objective seeming rhetoric, and then he interviews them back to back to back to back to back, and they all have this very convincing rhetoric, and then he just without inserting his own ideas, he'll just put one science quote from one scientist and then one right below it that completely contradicts what the other one is saying. So you get this like demonstration that I think is skeptical of the kind of objective and like scientific rhetoric and how it can be so convincing. So anyway, that just points to this great beginning to his conclusion. One of his conclusions on page 167. I think that what I believe is that the mountain is where we are. It's what we now have come to, a place that we have studied more thoroughly at this point than any other parcel of land in the world, and yet it still remains unknown, revealing only the fragility of our capacity to know. Okay, conclusion number one, that's kind of, he started this quest on page 15 to kind of look into this human dream that if we linger long enough with anything, the truth of its significance is bound to be revealed. And on page 167, he says, we've studied this mountain more than any other parcel of land in the world, and yet it still remains unknown, revealing only the fragility of our capacity to know. And then the next set of conclusions that he has, where he kind of speaks in his voice, his own sense that he has, is if I point to something seeming like significance, there is the possibility that nothing real is there. Sometimes we misplace knowledge in pursuit of information. Sometimes our wisdom, too, in pursuit of what's called knowledge. So it's a great example of what makes this kind of like a long form narrative essay. He starts his quest on page 15 about, trying to unpack this dream that if humans believe that if we stay with long enough with anything, that the truth of its significance will be bound to be revealed. And then at the end, he says that if he points to something seeming like significance, there's a possibility that nothing real is there. Okay, so we have some people commenting. Girl in Dungarees says, I did feel very lost in the second half of the book. And Jess Roberts says, hi, Ophi. Ophi says hi. She's very... sometimes she sits directly on the desk in front of me and then wants me to give her attention. And when I do give her attention, actually it's a lose-lose because she's kind of just so fired up that no matter what, she's going to like scratch and or bite me. So I kind of just try to stay safe and protect myself. This seems like cuddly, but it's dangerous. And she also likes to lay directly on top of either my keyboard or whatever I'm writing on, or over top of my forearm. She's so, ow. She's feisty. She's so feisty. I don't know. I gotta back away. I don't know why she's feisty. I don't know what's going on. But this is who she is in some ways. And then Girl in Dungarees, okay, I agree, especially the last chapter. The last chapter, I haven't talked about it too much because it kind of just deals directly with this boy who committed suicide. And that is a theme in the book. And I think when I was first reading that, I didn't really know what he was demonstrating with that. And I think you can read many different things into that. And I don't want to talk about suicide in general terms at all, just in the way that he's presenting it in this book. And the last chapter is just sort of a demonstration. It's just a flat and affectless kind of retelling of this boy's suicide. However, when I was reading it a little bit deeper, okay, so at first that is like, why would you end the book this way? Or what is this supposed to I guess I was resisting the idea that he's talking about like humans' inability to know and our ways of like self-appeasing, and then he's just like demonstrating this boy's like suicide, and I didn't want it to be like some brutal existentialist like here's your answer, you know, here's the solution or whatever. And I suppose you could read into that like that on the very base level is what he maybe was demonstrating, but I don't think so. That's not the way I read it. I think that he's talking about facade in a lot of the book, and this kind of the idea of like sign, and that how Las Vegas is a sign, you know, the world's biggest sign. Las Vegas is all sign. Like there is nothing behind the facade and the sign of Las Vegas. It's all sign. And how the stratosphere is the sign in Las Vegas, you know, and that's where the boy, you know, walked up and went through all these different logical and seemingly rational decisions to make this ultimately irrational and final and ultimate choice. And I think a way to read that is that he's presenting all this inability to know, all this unknowing. He's presenting Yucca Mountain as the place that we've studied more than any other parcel of land in the world, and still it remains a mystery. And he's presenting this this kind of facade of knowledge and how that relates to Vegas, in that Vegas is all facade. And then I think the boy in the stratosphere is like, right, a demonstration of like the inanity of the sign and the facade. Yeah, it's an interesting choice, and I think a pretty bold choice, and I think it could be read as like a solution, which, you know, just talking in the book about this theme in the book itself, I don't think that's what he's trying to get across. I think it's like this final and ultimate way of showing the just inanity and this is like non-life affirming way that we like create all of these unrealities around ourselves, these facades and the signs to kind of convince and appease ourselves of knowledge or understanding or something like that. But that's just my take, and we've got a lot of comments, so I'm very excited. Okay, the fit is giving effortless king. I appreciate that. Girl in dungarees, I guess she didn't like the book. I don't know. I don't think Ophi really liked it that much. And death was inherently all over the book. I guess, what do you mean by that? I think there was like this theme of this boy in the that he was kind of obsessed with at the stratosphere. That's where it came most clearly to me, was in that theme. But if there was other areas of the book where you felt like you this theme of death was coming in, let me know. And then Jess Roberts says, I did kind of love how the suicide is kind of also told through the theme of facade you mentioned. I did kind of love how the suicide is also told through the theme of facade. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I think that's a good way of putting it. Like, the stratosphere is like the ultimate facade. It's like a building that is all sign, and that is where this suicide took place. And there's also, just on that note, Jess, there's also a really good and interesting part when the mayor, let's see if I can find it. The mayor of Vegas sued a writer. Oh, shoot. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, here we go. So, I can't remember where this comes in the narrative and why it fit, but he's talking about like rates of suicide in Las Vegas, which are the highest in the world, or in the United States, and he on page 138 he's talking about cultural critic Hal Rothman, who's the Department of History chair at the University of Nevada, and all these he's talking to all these writers from Berkeley, and he says the only real problem Las Vegas faces is people like you who come from other places who don't know shit about this town but want to write about it. And then John DeGata like kind of exposes how Rothman is like writes this book that's conspicuously aggressive boosterism for a work of supposed criticism about Las Vegas. And it's a combination of cultural pandering and pro-business rallying from an author who seems never to have met a corporate shark he didn't like. And then this talks about writers in Las Vegas and how that some of the like casino executives have sued writers before. And then in contrast, the Las Vegas Review-Journal provided several weeks of good coverage for Las Vegas Mayor Oscar Goodman when he sued a writer named Jim McManus, an Illinois reporter whose popular memoir, Positively Fifth Street, alleged the mayor's participation in planning the assassination of a local judge. So he excerpts this, the part of the book that was cause for the lawsuit. And then, in the end, this was local coverage that so triumphantly succeeded for Oscar Mayor Goodman that within a few weeks, in the New York Times Book Review, a full-page ad appeared with a letter of apology addressed to Mayor Goodman, signed by the publisher of McManus's book. It was accompanied, and this is the important part, it was accompanied by a photograph featuring Mayor Goodman, arms folded, face smiling, legs spread, and firmly braced beneath the shiny glass hull of the Stratosphere Hotel. So the Stratosphere appears again and again in all these different ways in the book. And yeah, it is this kind of like triumphant sign of the like inanity, the facade itself, you know. So when Jess Roberts, when you pointed out the suicide in the book is told through the theme of facade, I think the Stratosphere is like that representation of unreality, of facade, and then this ultimate, I guess, kind of skepticism. And yeah, anyway, okay. And then Girl in Dungarees says death of the waste or the death of the people that might encounter it. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think even just what you're talking about, Girl in Dungarees, that like one part that kind of struck me is when, and another part of the book that I really like is when he was talking to the scientists and linguistics who were trying to devise some sort of sign, literally sign, for Yucca Mountain to keep people away, future generations, millennia from now, to try to keep people away from this place, to convince them like never to go here. Right, because there's this toxic waste that's going to be buried there. And some of the interesting things, one, the way just language dissolves and the way he kind of demonstrated language dissolving over time and its meaning and its the way it can be comprehended, kind of dissolving over time. that was really interesting. And then, these scientists and linguists and, uh, these people unable to devise a clear warning sign that kind of uh, suggests danger of the place. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is that when you talk about death of the waste or the death of the people that might encounter it, some of the proposals that really struck me for a warning sign were there is these like one of the proposals was to create this like acres and acres of like huge basalt like volcanic rocks, very sharp and just untraversable volcanic rocks, or maybe obsidian, I can't remember what it was, but to have like acres of those just surrounding this mountain so that it's like almost impassable to humans, and that you see this like black like dirge of the earth just all surrounding this mountain. So like the more visceral and human and like the less like linguistic and cognitive work you're trying to make these future generations do, and more just make them have like a visceral reaction, something that just looks ugly. And then there was also another proposal that like to either like hollow out rocks or somehow like make it so when the wind blew through, there was this note that was sounded by the way they like carved these rocks that would just be in this like minor D, I think it was, or some like very sad kind of like moaning chord, so that you have these like visceral experiences of like, this place seems bad, and we shouldn't go there. I thought it was very interesting and kind of suggestive of death. And there was something else interesting in that, but I forgot. Jess said, and the facade of leading us to believe he spoke to the boy who committed suicide. Oh, yeah. Just to reveal that wasn't the case 20 pages later. I totally agree. That really threw me off. I think I didn't catch that at first. And then as I was kind of like rereading through, I was like, oh, is he suggesting that he actually spoke to this boy, and this is why he was so obsessed with this kind of this suicide that he was talking about? And then he talked to the parents, and he goes to their house. It's just like almost like crushingly inappropriate research, like, why are you so upset? Like, leave these people alone. And then he kind of finds out, the way he even says it is very interesting. It's very casually like, oh, this turned out not to be the boy that I talked to that night. Just really, really, really interesting. And I think it's a way of just like demonstrating the like general human, this like convincing, we can convince ourselves of so many things. And I think this is just a way that he demonstrates his own, that he's fallible. He can also do this same thing. He convinced himself that this boy was the boy that he talked to the night of his suicide, and then goes on this kind of eerie and potentially like inappropriate quest to find out more about this boy, talk to his family, find the video of this event, and then finally to realize like, oh, this wasn't the boy that I talked to that night. Just very interesting. There's so many layers of this book, and how it's a really good example of how theme, or let's just let's erase theme. Let's call it just whatever engine you want to drive the book. It could be theme, voice, character, plot, whatever it is. If you really commit to one engine to drive a book forward, that engine can transform and evolve and deepen to a point that I think as a writer, starting something out and saying, hey, here's my theme, this human dream that if we linger long enough with anything, the truth of its significance is bound to be revealed. I have some sort of question or skepticism about this theme. And you can start this real life quest of discovery, and your theme and your life and your understanding can just deepen and change and be challenged and have, counterpoints. And it really, to write a really good book, it is possible. And sometimes maybe I sometimes convince myself that the recipe, which is doesn't exist, but the recipe might just be having one really good engine to drive the book and diving all the way into whatever that engine is and allowing it to change and evolve and grow and deepen. And this book works like magic to me. There's so many things that I think are things that you can miss, like what Jess was saying, like, that he believed that he kind of made it seem, led us to believe that he spoke to the boy when he didn't even really speak to him. I kind of miss that, and until I had to reread and look again. There's so many subtle things happening with the theme of facade and sign and self-convincing and, this kind of skeptic approach. It informs everything that's in the book. He's essentially just, as a writer, saying, here's my theme. Here's the general narrative that I have here, and then here, everything that I put into the book has to have some significance, has to come up against this theme. It has to challenge it or deepen it or change it or move it forward. It's just powerful. It's really powerful. And it's so, I think it's so well done, and the form is so precise and well executed that some of those thematic things can slip by because they're not so like blatantly obvious as to be like uninteresting or not kind of like novel and unique ideas. They are, and that's why they're kind of hard to grasp at times. You have to pay attention. You have to give the book your attention and energy, and then it gives back a lot. And it's also brutal. I think it's also really well written, very simply written, but some of the, talking about some of the language stuff, and then I'll get to some more questions. When I was talking about the linguistics and how like language kind of dissolves, this is just a good example of how like form, the theme is performed in the book. The theme becomes form. 1 second. Okay. So theme as form. Here we go. Or just how language can become very interesting when you're exploring, when you have kind of one engine driving the book. So this is about how English in the warning marker's message would appear to average readers 1,000 years from now. And he kind of, this is on page 128. He has this example that as illegible as Old English appears to average readers today. And he has the marker translated into Old English, which is pretty much totally unreadable. And then here we go. As Fritz explained, we tend to lose one word out of every 5 over the course of a millennium in English, a rate of decay that averages out to about 20%. Over the span of 10 millennia, however, the rate of decay would increase to a loss of 89%. So by the end of the warning marker's lifespan at Yucca, the English in the message would only have retained 11% of its significance, and therefore of its meaning, and therefore of its ability to say anything at all. And in the middle, you have this wonderfully kind of poem. It looks like a little poem. This of message world, this us were. Just a demonstration how the language in a book, and in this book, very simple, but it's often written in such a way to demonstrate very efficiently what the character is seeing before him, or an idea that's being presented. So subtly very well written, and very simple language, but very good. Okay. The signage was a very interesting part. Yes, he left us hanging with that. Those pages took me so long to get through. That's what girl in dungarees said. That's funny because I really like those pages. I like the pages with the scientists and the linguists, just because I really liked how they were all contradicting each other. And I think I have this general sort of like gullibility to me, which has become, I was like, anyway, if something is like delivered in a very convincing and especially like scientific rhetoric, I'm convinced, I'm like, wow, great idea. Let's put basalt rocks or obsidian all around, Yucca Mountain. And I'm convinced. And then the very next section of the book is another scientist saying like, why that just totally won't work. And then all of a sudden I believe them, and then the very next person is like, but what we need to consider. So I just found that really, that was like one of my favorite parts of the book, was all the linguists and the people who were trying to devise this marker for Yucca Mountain. And then all the scientists doing research and being so convinced of their research on the mountain itself. And then the very next section, the very next person that gets to speak in the book is undermining or contradicting what the person before said. I just really thought that was well done. And then Jess says he brings it up in such a casual, nonchalant way, then immediately moves on. A young boy called briefly, didn't say much. I realized like 3 pages later and had to go back. Yeah, same. That was exactly what happened to me. I was like, wait a second, what? Oh, okay. And then she says, oh no, I like the signage pages. It was the ones about the boy I struggled with. Yeah, was referencing the pages between thinking he talked to him versus finding out he didn't. Yeah, same. The science pages were great. I laughed out loud about the Half-Life conclusion. Yeah, I think in my notes, that's I keep saying that's my favorite part of the book, but that was like my ultimately favorite part of the book. That whole 10,000 year conclusion that they came up to that ultimately had no meaning at all. I think I did also laugh at that part. That's my true favorite part of the book. Which was, I think, in the first half of the book, page 50 something. But the pages about the boy and the recounting of all of the kind of logical and very kind of just what's the word? I want to say calm, but just kind of like very logical and resolute. All these like actions and decisions he had to make before going up to the top of the stratosphere and doing what he did. Those pages are really tough, really brutal. And yeah, again, I think it it works in the book. If it isn't read as the kind of like solution to this unknowing, if it's read as this kind of like ultimate kind of the ultimate like inane and like brutal demonstration of this like facade and this human unknowing, in an ultimate kind of unknowing and like yeah, I think there's different ways to read it, and I would suggest that like the easiest way, but the way maybe to be skeptical of, is that the ending on that boy's decision and recounting it the way he did. The way I'd be skeptical of reading it is that, okay, here's this human unknowing, this facade that I've shown throughout the whole book, and here's this solution. I don't think that would be the way that I would recommend reading the book. I think that, it's this is sort of like ultimate demonstration of, it's almost like a scream. We didn't talk about the Edward Monk. I've got this Nausgaard book. It's probably buried under here, and I was so excited to read it, and then I never did. But it's about Monk. It's so much longing in so little space. When Nausgaard got really obsessed with Edward Monk, but I was like, oh, where's the scream coming from? Like, why is this a part of the book? And then the fact that like the signs they wound up choosing are these like pyramidal structures with, I think there was some sort of a inscription of warning, and then at the very top of the pyramid is like Edward Monk, his scream painting the face of the scream at the top of the pyramid. I don't know. It seems such like also like a theatrical and performative kind of like warning. It doesn't seem very effective compared to the other things that they were proposing. And I think the end can be seen as this kind of like human scream. Maybe that's a little corny to say, but there's the book. You can't really see it, but it's over here. What do we got? The discussion about creating a marker for humanity thousands of years from now made me surprisingly emotional as well. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I think I want to hear more about that, Jess, about how that like brought up some emotions. That's cool. The boys' last hours were just so well documented and observed. Yeah. And the way his language in the book almost doesn't change at all. He has this like, there's this like very thin sense of skepticism and an affectless kind of approach to every single topic in the book, to every single theme in the book. And where that's kind of the most difficult or disturbing or hard to get through is the very last section, of the boy in the stratosphere. It's just brutal. Like, part of me as as a human, like I wish that last section wasn't in the book, but I also feel like artistically and for the book itself, it had to be in there. But it's just brutal. I think for the piece of art, it's the only way. But as a human, it just makes me shudder that the book ended that way. Oh, Turning the Tables is here. Let's go. You read the book. You messaged that you read the book. I'm interested what you thought about it. And also your close associate also read the book. I'm interested what she thought about it too. Yeah, just general takes. We've been talking about the last section, which is kind of ultimately brutal. Watching this while I board a flight, eating a sandwich too. Just thought you should know. Right on. That's cool. Well, I hope you have an easy flight and it's a good sandwich. And I'll. But if you have any takes on the book before you board, share them with us, because we'd love your insight. This has been so fun. This has been really fun. I half expected no one to show up, and but the fact that all y'all read the book is really touching to me. And I hope to share more like reading experiences together. It's cool to connect in a more, I mean, we're still online and in a chat room and all that sort of things, but it's a more like human to human kind of interaction, which I appreciate, rather than just like talking into a camera. So that's cool. So thanks everyone for reading the book. And if you have any more comments on the book, feel free to comment them. But I think it'd be fun if maybe we chose the next book together, with the asterisk that I have a couple in mind. I have a few books in mind. So I'm going to get on my computer here while Ophi bites me. Oh my gosh, this is dangerous. Okay. Oh. She's fired up. She's fired up today. So, there's this Chilean writer named Benjamin Labatut. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And he has these also kind of essayistic narratives that also are, I think, are going to be pretty brutal, but very much exploring a similar theme about kind of like the unknowability of things, and kind of, and the also the what would you say, that like convincing rhetoric of science, and what the dangers of that. One is called, oh my gosh, I have to protect myself because Ophi is like, she's on one right now. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I'm embarrassed that you all are seeing Ophi do this right now. She's feisty. One is called When We Cease to Understand the World, and it is about let's Wikipedia it. Historiographical metafiction, which is insane way to categorize a book. It describes the lives of scientists who work to revolutionize science and its related fields, and explores the theme of sacrifice, madness, violence, and destruction that can underlie science and its advancement. And then the other one that he just wrote that came out in 2023 was The Maniac, fictionalized biography of John von Neumann, who Labatut calls the smartest human being of the 20th century. Book focuses on von Neumann, but is also about physicist Paul Ehrenfest, the history of artificial intelligence, and Lee Sedol's Go match against AlphaGo. So that, reading this author is an option. I've never read him before, and I think he is doing kind of these like essayistic and creative narrative forms that you really couldn't call a novel or an essay or nonfiction or fiction. I just really like that stuff, and that writer's been recommended to me. The other one, the other book that I would be interested in, and I have another of hers, and Turning the Tables Turning the Table's close associate told me that they had also read this author, and I was reading it like right after they told me I was reading this author. Annie Ernaux is a French writer. I don't know if you can see. And she is really good. She won the Nobel Prize, which seems to mean that you're a good writer if you do. Okay, so she has some maybe more like, I don't know about traditional, but she has some more like novels. This one is called Things Seen, and it's adopted from her journals. And it's really good. It's really good. And there's another book that's very similar to it, very short, called Exteriors. The really cool thing about Things Seen is that it's almost primarily derived of a narrator's perception, but there's very rarely, if any, I think there's maybe one or two mentions of like I or anything personal that's going on in the narrator's life. But what happens in Things Seen, and what I think Exteriors is about, or a technique that Exteriors use that's similar to Things Seen, is that you get this whole sense of a person and a world and a context and a predicament only through exteriority, only through the things that this person is seeing, and almost nothing being told about the person themselves, but the perspective and the way they're seeing something. You can create this character behind it. It reminds me a little bit of, kind of reminds me of David Shields' The Very Last Interview, which is a very good book that I would recommend. And maybe we could read that one together at some point. I have it in the pile, but that book is all questions. It's a book entirely made up of questions that David Shields compiled from all the interviews he had given over his career, cut out all of his answers, and then arranged the questions to kind of like have this narrative force and build this idea of a character that was being asked all these questions. Really brilliant. I think the traditional like fictional craft fiction move is called like interiority. And so you like, you give the sort of inner world of a character in the narrative, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's a craft move that's taught a lot and it's done a lot, and it's kind of part and parcel of contemporary fiction. I love these books that literally do the opposite. There is no interiority and only the exterior, and yet still you can devise or derive a character and this whole person, a narrator or someone, through the perception of all these exterior things. So those are the options that I'm interested in. And I also think one good thing is that they're relatively short books. So Annie Ernaux's Exteriors is going to be the shortest book. And I don't know what the Labatut, I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Maniac book page count. I like these somewhat shorter books because we have a month and it's nice to be able to take your time and read slowly, that sort of thing. So the Maniac is 368 pages. That's definitely longer. And then let's do When We Cease to Understand the World. Page count is 192 pages. Okay, so I would be interested in When We Cease to Understand the World by Benjamin Labatut. or Annie Ernaux's Exteriors, which is not this book, but this is another of her books. So if you have any interest in either of those, let me know. And oh wow, so many comments. This is exciting. One comment is, do you plan to do the book club as a Zoom video chat way for the next ones? I would love to do that. I am a little bit lo-fi, technologically speaking, but I'm getting better. I have a microphone now, as you can see, and I figured out a way to do this. So I'm getting better, and I think I've been thinking about potentially like a Discord or a Zoom or something where we all can kind of hang out in more of like a salon situation. So it's not just me, but all of us together. And I like, maybe this is opening up the hood a little bit, but I do the live streams, writing sessions. I've been doing them like 5 days a week the past couple weeks. I would like to have some sort of ability to have more accountability for others that want to join that too, where you could like have a Discord server where we're all tuning in, and we'll just be muted. The whole thing is muted, but anyway, that's another conversation. But yes, I would like to do that. Jess said, I'd be down to vote on some you picked. Turning the Table, as I'm quite new to the world of literature, only started reading and writing seriously in the last 2 years. You can thank Jess for that, but one of the most unique reads I've ever come across. Cool. Yeah, I agree. I think it's unique in that, just its form, its execution, and it's kind of like not easily categorized as either just plain essay or nonfiction. I think it has this performative a performative kind of nonfiction narrative essay feel to it, which makes it really unique to me. I loved When We Cease to Understand the World. I'm so interested in reading his new book. Oh, let's go. Jess, such a great reader. Very interested in good books. I haven't read any of his stuff, so I'm very interested. Sorry, typing with this sandwich is hard. This is so funny. She's so cute. She's tweaking. Yeah, Ophi, I'm glad that she disappeared. She needed to take some time by herself. We've been roommates and companions for a very long time, 12 years, if you can believe it. So sometimes she gets tired of me. So far, both at my library, so 2 for 2. Nice. Okay, good. When We Cease to Understand the World was top 3 books I read last year. I just want to say y'all are very... we share similar aesthetics reading, which is probably why you were drawn to my, little world that I've started to put out there. And I just appreciate that. I appreciate that. Anyway, I'm grateful that y'all are reading and connecting. We get to connect. Turning the Tables associate, aka girlfriend, but I like associate. I prefer associate. Okay, Jess. Okay, cool. I prefer associate. Actually, you can put me on your payroll. This will be tough. These all sound interesting. I'm also very interested in reading Exteriors. I'm rereading The Years right now, as there's a play adaptation of it in London right now. It's a nice mic. The nice mic is pretty epic. I'm so down for a Discord. Google Meet is also a free option. Nice to chat in Discord server as we read as well. Discord is banned in my country. Okay, so I think if y'all are down, we should read Exteriors. I think Annie Ernaux is an awesome writer. Jess, you introduced me, or I was introduced at the same time by you and another person to Annie Ernaux, and I had things seen. I had already ordered it when you mentioned Annie Ernaux, and I really liked the book. So let's read Annie or No and Exteriors, and then maybe La Batute, we could read The Maniac or the other one a little bit later. Or maybe we'll forget about him and remember in like 6 months from now. Nah, I'll take the credit. Thanks. Yeah. Take the credit. Yeah, I really like Annie or No. She's really, really good. And I'm excited. I really like the idea of turning. I like the idea of writing, of not ever having to write from a blank page. Like, starting not with solely like the imagination and this like creative force that I feel like, you know, fiction writers use, but starting with material, whether it's like material you've created or found or researched, and then like eking out a narrative through that. I think Annie or No, I just like like her process in this book of things seen and in Exteriors, seemingly, of like taking journal entries and then making something like literary come to be from those. So yeah, if y'all feel that our discussion is clear and complete, I think that this was really fun. And thank you, everyone that came to hang out. We had Aslanaz Akaya. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Jess Roberts, Girl in Dungarees, Turning the Tables. Thanks for hanging out and reading the books. It's so nice. We'll figure out maybe other places to like host this. Maybe Discord would be really cool. I think keeping it as like easy and approachable for me for a little bit is helpful, but I think migrating to one of those other places will make it more interactive and more discussion based, which is the whole point. So I think that's it. Let's read Exteriors by Annie or No. I'll just type that into the chat. And that's the next book we'll read. I'll put a heart in the chat too, and also a celebration thing, because we did the first month of the book club. Blue Radio Media, thank you for coming. I'm hope you can hang next time, and we'll do it again. We'll do it next month, and we'll read Annie or No's Exteriors, and that's it. Bye bye. Have a good day.